So Phil, when you were adapting something like Flashpoint, which has these really iconic designs by one of the Kuberts, very, very iconic look, very, very like a fan favorite artist doing these.
Sure.
What kind of challenge did you see in sort of adapting this, not only just to put your special spin on it, but also to faithfully adapt it to animation?
There are certain artists, comic book artists, that lend themselves better to animation, and some that, you know, while they may have an iconic or very recognizable style, it's a little more difficult. Like there's not as much intrinsic to the style that's easily adaptable. So we didn't actually try to adapt the Kubert look for this. We kind of realized fairly early on that, given the time that we had to produce the thing, and you know, the challenges of sort of creating this whole universe. I mean, essentially, we have so many DC characters in it that, you know, we were just going to have to kind of take. I basically set the look based on my own style, but we actually made the choice to push more in the direction of certain animes, because we were working with Studio 4C and we wanted to play to their strengths, and we felt that the world of Flashpoint lent itself to a more extreme or exaggerated, you know, take. We decided to assimilate, you know, the look of guys like Kawajiri and Yutaka, who did Vampire Hunter D and Ninja Scroll, you know, the Madhouse stuff, and sort of incorporate that into my style, and that's essentially how we developed and cultivated the look of the characters for Flashpoint. So it was a conscious decision not to necessarily adapt the Kubert look, but to play more to the strengths of the animation studio that we were working with.
Now, for people who haven't encountered it yet in any form, is it two alternate universes or several alternate universes? It seems to be.
It's, I mean, to me, it's almost like It's a Wonderful Life or whatever. It's like, you know, what would happen if you made, or if in It's a Wonderful Life, obviously he just doesn't exist. But in this universe, it's like if you made a different choice, or if you tried to go back and change one thing, what would happen? And essentially, so it leads to another world with a ripple effect, where it's like, you know, a lot of, obviously it's a totally different timeline, and a lot of darker things transpired with all the sort of.
And how do we get to the point where Atlantis is fighting with the Amazonia? I mean, how does that even? What was your thought process there?
Well, I think that's more of a director question.
That's
for
fair.
Jim or for Jay. Essentially, I just take the script and I talk with the directors about tone and art direction and stuff like that. So I wasn't necessarily involved in the story, the plotting stage of it.
You know, as far as, I don't know if this came out of the comic or not, but the look of Superman was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I mean, that was a little startling.
Yeah. Which version?
I'm talking about the ultimate version.
Yeah.
Of him.
Yeah.
Is that kind of the comics? I'm just curious.
As far as I know, because I think I looked at, it's been a while since I designed the movie. We shipped it a while ago, and so I'm pretty sure though that I looked at. If I didn't look at reference, it was described to me, you know, we want him to be very gaunt and emaciated, you know, very, you know, almost like a concentration camp, you know, sort of look to him. And so I tried to parallel that with, you know, how when he appears at the beginning of the film. I mean, the most robust Superman design I've ever done. I really pushed in the opposite direction for that, to draw that parallel. So.
Well, you want to talk about iconic characters like Superman that have such a different look for Flashpoint. All the iconic characters from DC have a very different look for their Flashpoint versions.
Right.
Even Batman, who's very similar, does have a very different costume design. Did you find it challenging to sort of put aside your preconceptions for these characters when you went in to do the designs for the Flashpoint version?
Not at all. No. I mean, it's the tone of the story and the world and what, you know, what the characters inherently lend themselves towards, and how they're written, you know. And I think Batman was you know, again, we were pushing the style as very exaggerated, and so it wasn't difficult to see where this character would go, because again, it's not Bruce, it's Thomas, you know. So it's like, you know, what would this guy be like? And I really wanted something more like, he's more of like a retired heavyweight fighter thing. He's got this huge trunk. I was thinking of like Hellboy and you know, some of the like a mix between that and some of the characters from like a Darkstalkers video game. I mean, we pull inspiration from a lot of different sources on stuff like that. So again, it's like that, you know, that over-the-hill boxer look, this big, huge trunk, and he's not lithe and agile the way I would typically draw Bruce Wayne. So I wanted it to be distinct in that regard.
Was it fun to redesign the characters?
It's always fun. It's always hard too, because we're up against really difficult deadlines. So you try to find that inspiration. It's a tremendous amount of fun. Every day you kind of tell yourself, you know, I have the best job in the world. And that's kind of how you get yourself through the crazy hours that it takes to get this stuff done in the time frame and within the limitations of what we have to work with. So
now, when you were starting the process, did you have a chance to talk to Jay as far as what his vision for the look of the characters was before you actually just started going?
Absolutely. Jay and I work really well together. We work, all of us on the production work really close. Like my office is right next to Jay's office. We talk every day. We're always talking about, even before working on Flashpoint, you know, we had worked together on Young Justice, and we share a lot of similar sensibilities. So I can say, you know, one thing, or hey, what if we tried this with these characters? And he knows exactly what point of reference I'm pulling from, and a lot of times they're the same, or they're right along the same lines of thinking that he would naturally tend to go. So we're really, I think, fairly compatible in that regard. But we do communicate every day about that stuff.
So, for you know, the alternate costumes, some of them are, you know, very detailed, have a lot of stuff going on in them. Did you find any of them that they couldn't work in an actual moving capacity, and then you had to kind of change them up a little bit more than you expected?
I think I mean, when I think of the more complicated designs, I think of Cyborg, and it's always tricky to do a character like that. You have to decide, you know, animation is a lot of things, but it's the art of economy, you know, and you have to have an economy of line and detail, and, you know, the way you know, describe and cut the forms and the volumes has to be really thought out. But yeah, like the more mechanical characters like that, it's always a challenge. But, you know, I think you buy a little slack by giving the fact that a lot of the characters are very simple. So you almost buy faith from the animation team in a way, like, okay, here, Flash is easy, you know, like, Cyborg is hard. Like, you know, let me give you 5 easy characters, and then, you know, give me more on this guy. You know, I mean, it doesn't always work like that, but yeah, I mean, I can't think of any like specific reference in particular, like from the comics. It's hard for me to remember actually at this point what the comic book reference was, because all I see now is what we ended up with, and I would have to refamiliarize myself with the comic.
Although you say that it's kind of hard to remember, but you know, comic book geeks are really geeky. So
I know that. I'm one myself. Yeah.
So I'm wondering, was there any kind of subtle detail that's like a total Easter egg that you're like, oh, I put this in as a reference to this particular, you know, anything like that you really had fun with and kind of just were like, I'm going to sneak that in or whatever into the design? Or...
Man, I know there's one in there, but I'm blanking on it right now. I haven't watched the movie in several months, but I mean, I was excited to get Aqualad from Young Justice in there.
Okay.
Like again, like, you know, me and him go way back, so it was cool to be able to introduce him. And actually, Jay, when he read the script, I don't think Aqualad wasn't even in the script. Jay's like, let's get all the Atlanteans in there, like, and he knew that it would be a design challenge, but he knew that he was appealing to my, you know, desire to draw. I love drawing I love drawing all the DC characters, so he totally played me. He's like, yo, let's get all these guys in there, and he knew I would go for it. So, but I actually, when I asked him, I said, which Aqualad do you want to use? And he said, oh, let's do Calder, you know, so you could do a new design based on your Young Justice design. And I said, what if we do both? And they're like double dragon, you know what I mean? So that was, I mean, that might be a little bit of an Easter egg.
That's great.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so that's what we were doing there. Essentially, they have the same outfit, they're just different colors, and they're reversed. Like, the Aqualad's shoulder guard is on one side, and the opposite on Garth. So yeah, I mean,
that's a total geek bag.
Yeah,
awesome.
There you go. Double dragon, Aqualads.
You mentioned you moved on to other things, obviously, because the movie's about to come out.
Yeah.
But, are you working on any more of the DC Universe animated Classic Originals? Are you working on more right now?
I am indeed. Well, I am working on more of the DC movies. We're already done with War as far as the pre-production.
So maybe you can speak to this. Obviously, Flashpoint in the comics was a watershed event. It launched DC's New 52. Now they've announced that War, based on the first Justice League arc, is coming out. Should fans be reading anything into the fact that Flashpoint is being followed up immediately by the arc that launched the New 52 for Justice League?
I think that there's definitely a link, and there's definitely we are creating our own continuity. I wouldn't say that Flashpoint is directly connected in the sense of like we're not using all of the same elements, but it is a continuity. There is a continuity there.
Last question. And as far as how you work, do you still find using pencil and paper, or is it all computer first?
It's funny. I'm a dinosaur, man. I'm actually half traditional and half digital. A lot of my friends, a lot of my peers who have been in the business, they started at the same time that I did, have completely shifted over to digital, and the younger kids coming in now, they don't even know what pencil and paper is, you know what I mean? So I still do all my concept art traditionally. I draw it by hand, but then I do a lot of my, I build the rest of the model pack. A lot of it is digital, so I'm half and half. I'm right down the middle.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.